50 for 50. What if I told you thunder only happens when it's raining and SGA is pouring? Cronin, Lyles, and a couple old men snoring on that. And the news of the day, Kyrie Irving torn ACL, season over. Those tears streaming down his face for those free throws. Mavs fans crying icicles instead of tears. Let's go around the horn. The news coming from Dallas this morning. Worst fears realized. Torn ACL for Kyrie Irving last night. His season over. A long rehab coming. That moment last night on the free throw line, staying in the game for those shots. Tears in his eyes. It just grabs you. Dallas Mavericks franchise now approaching cursed levels. How a team that made that finals last June could be in this place 60 games later will be studied in disaster classes. Frank Isola, around the horn to you. Have you ever seen anything like that?
It's awful. It adds injury to insult for the Dallas Mavericks. Like most people, I didn't like that trade, and you mentioned it. In June, then the NBA Finals, the best player in their team has since been traded. The guy they acquired for him, who's a good player, is currently hurt. And then the guy carrying the bulk of the scoring load, Kyrie Irving, is done for the year. I feel badly for Kyrie from this standpoint. Over in Brooklyn, he did not have a good run there. He didn't seem happy. He rejuvenated his love for the game, his actual game overall in Dallas, and was playing really, really well. This is a major setback for Dallas because remember, Nico Harrison put that window at about 3 years. And now you're probably not going to get Kyrie back for about 12 months. So this season is already essentially done. What an absolute mess.
George Sedano, around the horn to you.
Tony, to add to Frank's point, I've been around this Dallas team a ton over the last 2 seasons. And Kyrie Irving obviously had been embroiled in a lot of controversies. Some deserved, some not necessarily. And the burden he had to take on this particular season. Since the Luka trade, okay, he was averaging nearly 40 minutes a game with his injury history at almost 33 years old. And that doesn't even account for the fact that for a month prior to that, he was carrying a 37 or 38 minute burden while Luka was dealing with his injury prior to the trade. It just has been a complete nightmare for this team. And honestly, it's in their best interest to not even try to make the play-in at this point, although that may be tough considering the way the Suns are playing right now.
Gordy Cronin, around the horn to you.
Yeah, I'm with George on that. They're 3.5 games ahead of where Phoenix is right now for the 10 seed. What are you going to do? Rush Derek Lively, PJ Washington, and Anthony Davis back, risking even further injury to then likely lose in the play-in tournament? This is awful. If he was playing at an all-NBA level, had totally revitalized himself as a basketball player, and now this team, not just at a crossroads for what happens in the immediate term, think about the future. They may be hitting the reset button to blow this thing up before it ever even had a chance to get off the ground. He's got a $44 million player option that he's probably opting out of. That leaves the Mavs with a massive hole at the point guard position because even if he stays, if he goes, he's not going to be ready to play at the start of next season. This is catastrophic all the way around for the Dallas Mavericks. And let's not forget, we find out yesterday that they're raising season ticket prices on these loyal fans who wanted no part of this from the jump by 9%. This is at like nuclear levels of catastrophe in Dallas right now.
And Harry Lyles Jr.
Yeah, Tony, simply, it is one of the most disappointing seasons in recent memory. I certainly can't think of one that is more disappointing. You mentioned at the top of the show, this is a team that is coming off of a finals appearance. They had made great moves last season in order to bolster this roster around Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. You trade away Luka Doncic, you shorten your championship window probably by 7 years, right? Frank had mentioned that they think it's now a 3-year window. It's even shorter than that now. A lot of the players that you added to this team are now injured, whether it is a Derek Lively or a Daniel Gafford. Obviously, Anthony Davis, the piece that you thought was your big piece that you got in that Luka Doncic trade, he is hurt, and now you have the Kyrie Irving injury as well. And Courtney just mentioned the ticket prices. If you are a Dallas Mavericks fan and you have that announcement coming, especially after this particular injury, you need to tell your franchise to at least kick rocks for a year, because that is absurd that the price is now going up given everything that they've put you through over the last 6 months.
Yeah, I hear you guys, and I appreciate the representation, the idea of a championship window. You ask a Mavs fan, there's no window, there's no house right now. Frank Isola, last word.
And I'd love to get a comment from Klay Thompson. Remember, one of the reasons he signed with Dallas was to play with Luka and Kyrie. And you have Kyrie playing at the top of his game, and then you trade Luka. What sense does that make? And now poor Kyrie, who was carrying a heavy load, a heavy scoring load. The strength of your team was Kyrie and Luka. You trade one away, and now the other guy's hurt. Mess.
Oh, and Tone, let's not forget, Luka's coming to town on April 9th. So if you think things are bad now, wait till April 9th comes around. He's already got one game against them under his belt. He's going for 50 that night.
We've been horned. We'll move on. College last night. Cooper Flagg. His last game at Cameron, 28, 8, and 7 in the wake of Wake. Fans chanting, one more year. He sees the gesture, run it back with NIL and what he can make at Duke. Going pro, no longer the automatic decision maybe, but very likely. You could talk through that, Harry Lyles Jr., and his game right now. How NBA ready? How high a ceiling?
Yeah, let's address him coming back first. That is not going to happen. I know a lot of us like to think that NIL is this bottomless pit of cash, and it is not quite that, at least not enough to keep you from being the number one overall pick in the NBA draft. That said, I think he is going to be a star in this league. He is a complete player. He doesn't really have any weaknesses where you look at him and you go, oh my gosh, like that is just absolutely not going to stick when he gets to the league. I think the biggest question is, how does his offensive game develop? Jon Scheyer has intentionally put him in positions this year to try to see if he can create his own shot, and it's something that he's definitely improved on. I think the other big thing that you got to remember with Cooper Flagg, this guy turned 18 years old in December. He reclassified. He is a year even ahead of his own schedule. So I think he needs to get drafted into a place that is going to allow him to succeed and to grow, because those are the things that are necessary when you have a guy, even though he is extremely talented, as young as he is, he needs room to grow.
Okay, but I asked for ceiling. So even when he gets that growth, what is the ceiling before he bangs his head?
15-year vet, star.
Courtney Cronin, around the horn to you.
He's the perfect positionless basketball player. He's a guy who can switch 1 through 5 on defense. He's a wing who can handle the ball and have the offense run through him. It's difficult to find what that defining trait is for Cooper Flagg. He's not like other number 1 overall picks. Like with Zion Williamson, with Paolo Banchero, we knew that these two were imposing downhill forces who could be really crafty when they were passing the ball. So you wanted to bring shooters around them, to space around him. With Wemby, it's obvious that you just need somebody for him to lob the ball to. And obviously he's a great shooter, whatever. But like Cooper Flagg doesn't have that one defining skill that makes him, head over heels better than everybody else. I just think that it's the versatility aspect that he brings to the NBA, which is going to be the reason why he has such a long career. And we've gotten to see only a glimpse of it in the one season he has at Duke.
George, when I talk ceiling, you think what for Cooper Flagg?
Okay, well, when I think ceiling, I think his ceiling can be somewhere between top 10, 15, 20 player in the NBA at the peak of his powers if he's healthy throughout his career. And I'll add this, Tony. You mentioned that 28, 8, and 7 stat line. Don't forget the 3 blocks, the 2 steals, only 1 turnover. Over 45,000 players have played a D1 game. No one has ever had that stat line I just uttered right now, okay? So here's the other part of it. He's so good that when he was on the select team, when they were practicing basically against Team USA heading into the Olympics, people were talking about how he should have been playing with the Olympic guys. That's how good he was against the Olympic guys.
You just said top 10, top 20. That sounds to me like something higher than that. I didn't hit a mute button. Whoa, what happened there?
Not necessarily.
It's all right. We cool. Go ahead.
Not necessarily. Like top 10, Tony, means that he's one of the best players in the sport. Top 20, there's only 30 teams, Tony. So if I'm giving you top 10 to 20, that's pretty darn impressive.
How about you?
As a famous alum from rival North Carolina once said, the ceiling is the roof for Cooper Flagg. I think the guy could be a perennial all-star in this league. And remember, too, let's be fair, a lot of it has to do with who drafts you. If he goes to a team like San Antonio, you have Victor Wembanyama there already, Stephon Castle, and you have the point guard, De'Aaron Fox, it's a little bit different. But this is a guy, remember, he turned, as Harry pointed out, 18 in December. He's supposed to be a high school senior, and if he played more minutes, he's right now a shade under 20 points per game. He's at 19.6. He'd be over 20, and when he played against the Olympic team this summer, listen to what those guys said. Kevin Durant, and you had Steph Curry and LeBron James. They were raving about the kid. They're not just tossing those bouquets just to make the kid feel good. They know that he's a player.
So Courtney's observation, he's not doing one particular thing above and beyond. Do you think that is a pro or a con going into an NBA career, Frank Isola?
No, I think he's a playmaker, which is going to be big. You could put the ball in his hands. He can create for himself or for his teammates. He's going to be a big-time star.
Taking a break here. Buy or sell next. It's NFL Franchise Tag Day, and NFL free agency is looming. But we start with the news of the day from Philadelphia, an extension for Saquon Barkley. 2 years, $41.2 million. First ever $20 million running back. That means he's the highest paid RB ever. Plus $15 million more in incentives and escalators after the stairway to heaven that he provided for Philadelphia and winning the Super Bowl this year. Courtney, buy or sell this deal going forward, though, for Saquon and the champs?
I'm buying it. Number one, he deserves it, clearly. He was incredible this past season. He was the heartbeat of this offense. Additionally, though, there's some really creative salary cap maneuvering here from Howie Roseman, the GM of the Philadelphia Eagles. He just cut Saquon Barkley's cap hit nearly in half, $13.5 million to $6.8 with this extension. It's
how does
rare
that happen?
to extend
Here's more
a player,
money, but less money against the cap for us. I love how that happens.
because it allows them the flexibility to move forward into free agency to go address some other needs. And it's a smart and prudent move. It's just rare because they did this 1 year into the 3-year deal that he signed, and then same league year as well.
George Sedano, around the horn of you.
Tony, let's talk about how we're buying this, because we're selling the Giants still, okay? And the fact that they gave up on this guy and that the Eagles were able to land him in their division and then go win a Super Bowl with him as he broke the scrimmage yard record. I mean, this guy, by the way, also telling everyone, hey, the running backs don't matter, crowd. You know what? Bleep you. Yeah, they do.
Harry Lyles Jr.
Yeah, the Giants could have done this for cheaper. But yeah, of course I'm buying this contract. Look, he became just the second player in NFL history to win the rushing title, NFL Offensive Player of the Year, and a Super Bowl in the same year. The only other one was Terrell Davis. So if he has better luck in the health department than Terrell Davis did, I think that this is going to be an incredibly great contract for the Eagles. And yeah, shout out to the running backs.
That's part of it, right? Running backs, after they passed a certain plateau of touches in a season, 370 was the number for a long time, there is a comeback down to earth. And now this is an extension for the future. Frank Isola, buy or sell it for Philly?
Yeah, the New York Giants refuse to comment on this deal. I think it's a great deal for everyone involved. Number one, he's getting what he's earned and deserved, but let's also be fair. The shelf life for running backs is pretty small, so a 2-year deal for the Eagles is pretty friendly for them as well.
Buy or sell too, NBA last night. Thunder 137, Rockets 128. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander 51 in OKC's 50th win. His fourth 50 this year. If you look at the MVP odds, he seems to have it on lockdown. If you look at the conference standings, his team has it on lockdown. 11 games up. Point differential. They're running away with the West, George. Do they get a Sedano guarantee to make the NBA Finals?
No guarantee, Tony, but they are setting the record right now in point differential in NBA history. I mean, it's as close to a guarantee as you can get, but I'm not willing to guarantee it. But here's the thing I can guarantee. I think Shai's going to get his first MVP. I'll guarantee that, because you look at his counting stats, points, assists, rebounds, steals, and blocks, over 50% shooting. Nobody's done those kind of numbers since Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Bank on the MVP for Shai.
Frank Isola.
You know, I'm not going to give a guarantee either. Let's remember they got knocked out in the second round, but I'll say this about Shai. Prior to January 22nd, his career high was 45 points. There were 61 active players with a better career high. Since then, he's gone over 50 4 times. Wow. And when your team turns 50 in early March, that's pretty darn good.
Harry Lyles Jr. I just put up the standings. There are 11 games in front of everybody else in the conference. I thought everybody would be buying a team with that resume. I haven't had a buyer yet. You guarantee an NBA Finals for OKC?
I am going to guarantee it.
There
To me, there are similar notes, not necessarily in terms of style, but in terms of the way that we are talking about this team. This feels like the Nuggets 2 years ago before they won their first championship. This is a team that, George, you mentioned it, is setting the record for point differential in league history, or is beating the 72 Lakers. They're 11 games ahead in the Western Conference, which we all believe to be this amazing conference. I think we just need to see it happen. I think that this is the year that it's going to happen.
Tony Cronin, do I have a Cronin guarantee?
I won't give you a guarantee on that. I'm more in line here with George. I don't want to have the conversation of who's the MVP anymore. It's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He leads the league in 20, 30, 40, and 50-point games this season. And as Frank mentioned, he already has 4 of these. Kevin Durant didn't have 4 50-point games during his MVP season when he was with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And to watch Shai do this by not deferring to the free throw line last night. He was 10 of 10 from the charity stripe. He usually gets a knock that he gets too many contributions from doing that. He bucked that notion last night en route to his 50-point game.
Yeah, go ahead, Frank.
Yeah. Reed Shepherd was also guarding him last night because most of Houston's team was injured. He's had a great season. Last night's not going to be number 1 on the highlight reel, believe me. He wasn't going to
Buy or sell 3. I see 5 or 6 travels a game that aren't called. Who said it? Everybody said it. Your high school coach said it. Your grandpa says it. Steve Kerr said it yesterday. He wants refs to start calling traveling more in the NBA. He wants refs to look at the feet. He says it'll be a much better game if we clean up traveling. Frank, buy or sell?
You know what? He sounds like the rest of us old people because they could also call this a lot, too, when they don't do it. I don't know. I mean, there's enough that the referees have to focus on. There's a little extra step. I don't think it's the biggest.
Really? That surprises me to hear you say that. Harry Lyles Jr.
Yeah, okay, but we're talking about the travels where everybody in the arena stands up and is like, yo, like, we can't have that, man. Like, among the things that we can fix about NBA basketball, people complain about threes, they complain about players sitting out games. This is one thing that you can actually fix. If they can eliminate those travel calls, like, it's also the most awkward play in sports, knock them out.
Tony Cronin.
I've been channeling some Steve Kerr at home, watching NBA games lately, being like, how is that not a blatant travel call? Like, if I can see it at home and he can see it where his vantage point is on the bench, I think referees need to be paying attention to this a little bit more as well.
George Sedano.
Tony, considering how sports love to, all sports really are into pace of play and the amount of time the games will take, yeah, that's not going to help the time of play
What are you talking
for the
about?
NBA.
Blow a whistle when somebody is gathering, pivoting, spinning around, Euro stepping into another pivot.
If you did it every time, come on, Tony.
I mean, there are, of course, incredible travels throughout all of time. Russell Westbrook just picking up the ball and walking, forgetting to dribble. That's not what Steve Kerr's talking about. He's talking about what has emerged as the turnaround, Euro step 3-point step back 3.
Yep.
Tweaks the rules where the pivot changes in the gather. You're not going to the basket. That's what he's talking about.
My guy, Monty McCutcheon, knows what he's doing. Leave him alone, Steve.
He doesn't ref. He's the head of a pivot.
Sedano, Isola, walking their way to showdown net. Here's a hard knock. UNC Hard Knocks deal falls through. Last week, we discussed the report that no NFL team wanted it, and Belichick stepped up with UNC. Now NFL media saying no deal is in place. Couldn't agree on creative control. George, what happened?
Well, Tone, it's funny because I was sitting there saying, wow, look at Bill. He's going to show all those NFL guys that think he wants too much control that he's going to be willing to cede some and let people see the real new Bill Belichick. And then, of course, he wants too much control. So, of course, it doesn't happen.
Isola?
Yeah, come on. Everyone wants control over everything. This goes back to what happened with the Giants with the Saquon Barkley mess. But come on, they were the perfect team to have. New coach, his personal life, everything. They were on board. At the last second, he must have said, no. I'm not doing it.
I still think you're right. Joe Shane's phone called Saquon. That's what this is always about now. Nobody wants to be in that position again. We'll give the point to Isola. Showdown 2, a story that came out of left field. Actually came out of second base, but Astros plan to move Jose Altuve from second base to left field. Another big-name player making a move this winter. Trout to right field. Mookie to shortstop. Bregman and Devers. There's a third base controversy. Somebody's moving out of third base there. And now Altuve. Frank? which change has intrigued you most?
You just showed it right there. How can you not love Jose Altuve? Been one of the better players in the game for the last decade. I just want to see whether or not he could rob a home run, Ken Griffey style. I'm waiting to see if that
Hey, are you out of your mind? It's obviously Devers and Bregman. Bregman's one of the best fielders at that position. Devers has literally been the worst fielder at that position for the last 7 seasons. This isn't even a close competition.
Yeah, I think we know where that
Back
one's
to the
going.
wall.
I think we know where that one's going. But Altuve, robbing a home run is something I would like to see. I think Frank Isola just robbed a showdown win. Safe time, Frank.
Hey, let's hear it for Adrian Brody from Queens, Zoe Saldana from New Jersey for winning the Academy Awards. I was been around long enough to know that all the movies that were nominated for Best Picture this year, didn't even watch any of them. But there was a movie that I did see, and I talked to the producer and the writer last week, Angelo Pizzo of Hoosiers. He told me a great story about the late, great Gene Hackman, that when the movie wrapped, Gene Hackman thought, this is it, I'll never see you again. This movie will never become big. What's the movie that everyone recognized Gene Hackman for? Coach Norman Dale. How about that? Pretty cool. Hoosiers was a movie we all loved, and we all watched it.